What's up, buds? It's Fly High FPV, and I have got a quick and dirty tutorial on conformal coating your ESC. I've got a brand new T-Motor Velox ESC, and you can see that they do in fact conformal coat it from the factory, which is great. I applaud factories for doing this instead of giving you a nice dry board. This thing has been coated from the factory, but I am going to coat it anyway because I find that this level of coating isn't enough to really give me 100% protection from the water, and I plan to fly into the water and back out of it. So first thing I'm going to do is get a prop and start working on getting the heat shield off. I'm going to dig the prop right up underneath a corner and then pry up, pry up, see if I can get that thing to come off. Usually takes me a few tries to get it, but I'm just going to keep working it back and forth. I find the back side of the prop really does a good job of just digging in there and then allow me to press up on it. You want to be careful not to damage the connector because we are going to still use the connector, but I just keep prying and there it goes. So peel it right off, and then once you've got it off, you can take this same propeller and you can use that to clean up the thermal paste that's on here. Move that out of the way. And a little scrapey. And this part right here, cleaning the thermal paste off, is probably the longest, slowest part of the whole process. You're going to want to do the underside of the heatsink like so, and then once you get this done, you're going to want to go to the ESC and work on getting it off the tops of those fets. But there we go. That's the vast majority of it. Pretty much gone. Really, we just want it to get gone so that we've got a nice thin layer of conformal coating, and that's it, and not a bunch of other stuff for it to be transferring through. Thin layer conformal coating will transfer just fine. Over on this side, same thing. Again, I'm using a propeller. I really like a propeller for this job because it's plastic, it's not metal, it's not going to damage anything or scrape anything. We're just going to do a little blah, blah, and get rid of the extra junk that we don't need. And we got 2 fets left. prop was also really nice because it's got this good sharp edge. It's not going to damage your board. It's great for getting in those little gaps. Just this last one here, and we should be good to go. All right, that is good enough right there. All right, next thing we need, gonna get this out of the way. And what I have here is a busted frame. I put a standoff in it and a screw. And this is my pro tip for conformal coating, is just get you set up like this. Makes it super easy. And it allows the workspace to work for you. 2.5 driver. Perfect. All right, now I like Brandon's WorryFree coating. This batch is for March 2025. I'll get rid of whatever's left on the top because it'll kind of dry off and leave a little rubber. And then I'm going to take my prop again. I love props for conformal coating. They're such a good tool. Let me see, can I zoom in a little bit? Zoom in with the master cam. We'll see what we can do right there. So I'm going to just squeeze out a bead like that. And then I just smear it on. And usually when I start on the bottom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to conformal coat everything but the pads across the bottom from edge to edge. And you can even start with the tube and just generously apply it. Be careful not to go too heavy, because then you'll end up with goo left over or dripping off, and you don't want that. I like to get a nice thick layer though. Alright, put my lid back on and let's get to spreading. I like to make sure I get all the way around the edges of all the fets. So we got all the tops of them right there. And then again, the prop comes in handy. I'm just gonna use it like a little butter knife. Let's come down right along this line, right there. Just like a butter knife. Right where you want it and not where you don't. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's come around this way. And I'll get right on this line. And smear it. Come all the way over, cover this row of fets. Okay. Make sure that guy's all good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So again, we got everything edge to edge here. except for the pads. In fact, this is the bottom of the board, so we're going to go ahead and cover up the pads too. On the top of the board, I'll leave the pads open, but again, this is the bottom, and we're not going to be using the bottoms. Look at that, just right over the top of it. Beautiful. Give me another spooge. And spooge and smear. And one more little spooge. All right. And if, for example, I tore one of the pads off and I needed to use the bottom, not a big deal. After this is dried, you can just scrape it away with a fingernail and have a nice clean pad again. All right, so that's it. The bottom is all done. Now we're gonna flip it over and we're gonna prep the top. Now this is just how I prep my spares to be ready to go into a quad at any moment. So I'm actually planning to install this ESC tomorrow, and so I am prepping it tonight so it'll be ready to go. Same thing on the top. We're gonna spooge and smear. Try to get row along those caps and get them along these caps and these caps. That's more than I needed, but it's okay. We're gonna be nice and safe. So I'm putting my lid back on and we get to spreading. Now this is the top, so I do not want to cover all my pads. I just want to cover right up to them. I'm just gonna get across the tops of all my fets, and then I'll go down and get in the sides. I'm gonna go right across the back of this big connector. Oh yeah, seal that thing in. And let's take the goo on over here. Make sure I got that one. And get these guys. Oh, that's a lot. It's a little more than I needed. It's okay. It's okay. One pro tip that I'm not following is you can plug your ESC wire in advance, and that will keep the plug filled so that you don't accidentally get any goo inside of it. Now I've got to do is go around the edges of these fets. So I'm going to get a little bit on me, and I'm just going to get down here with the blade and run those edges. That's really the most important part. That's where I see them always blow anyway. Is right here along these edges, or this inside edge that's against the capacitors. All right. That looking good. I need to get the front edge of these ones next. Sorry, my hand is blocking. My primary concern is just getting my stuff waterproof, but I want to share the knowledge and show how it's done, because I do this quite a lot. Every ESC, every flight controller. All right, so we're done. Next step, we're gonna take our cleaned off heatsink and we're gonna just squeeze it right back in, right into its spot. And this is just gonna kind of glue it back down as if we never removed it. And you see it squeezing out the edges. That's good. You want it squeezed out. That means that you've gotten it nice and thin. People always say like, oh Dave, it's gonna overheat if you do that. No, it won't. The trick is to squeeze it so it's nice and thin. And so you've got a good thin layer of conformal coating in there. Thin is good, right? Thin means it'll just go pass right through it, transfer the heat into that plate. If it's thick, then you got to worry about air and all that. Once it's thin, you're good to go. So that's it. This is now a ready spare. I'll let it dry here overnight, and in the morning I'll be installing it in my quad. I love this method though because my pads are clean and open and ready to go. If I needed a new flight controller, I would do it right here as well, but I've already got a spare. And it would just be the same thing. I go on the bottom, edge to edge, and on the top, I'm going to be avoiding the button. I'm going to be avoiding a barometer if you care about a barometer. I'm a freestyle pilot. I don't care about barometers. But a barometer is a little metal can with a tiny little hole in it. If you cover up that hole, it won't work. So you're painting around the back of your plugs. You want to avoid your buttons. And that's about it. If you've got a plug that you don't need, like here's an old flight controller. Got an old plug that you don't need. Like I always use the ESC plug, but I never use the plug for the HD VTX because I direct wire all of mine. And so you can just plug that full of conformal coating. You'll want to paint around the back side of the USB. Don't get it all up inside of there. And the Brandon's Worry-Free kits come with little silicone USB plugs you can put in those to do it before you paint. I've never had an issue with them, but I always just paint around the back sides. But yeah, conformal life. Usually the bottom is edge to edge because it's rare that I have to solder on the bottom of a flight controller or the bottom of an ESC. And then on the top, I would do the same thing here. I paint everything but the pads that I'm going to use. So it'd be painted here, all along here, around the button, back side of this, back side of that, and I'd come right along here, back side of this, and leave these pads, leave these pads, and leave these pads. Now, I don't usually use these. I usually just cover it. But those guys right there, I always use, and that's the stuff for the buzzer right next to the 5-volt regulator, and that looks like that's what broke on this one. Anyway, that's how you do it. Conformal coating for the win. I do all my birds with Worry-Free. I really swear by this stuff. I will not be going back to MG Chemicals unless something drastically changes. The price has just gone through the roof for them lately, and the coating was never as good. It was so thin. I'd have to do 3 or 4 layers, and even with 3 or 4 layers, it wasn't as good as one coating of this. So this is easier to apply. It's cheaper. It's only $10 a kit. Definitely gets my vote. If you need some, check me out, flyhighfpv.com. I pretty much always have these guys in stock. And yeah, holla at your boy, Fly High FPV.